Get a lot of people who are talking politics, distill their conversations down to what the values are behind those conversations.
I'm Matt Barnes, alongside my brother, Dan Lathan.
What's up, everybody? I'm JJ. I'm here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Part of P68's Softening the Ground series.
Partnered with P68 to bring you guys a new series called Softening the Ground. You want to introduce yourself, exciting life guy?
Hope you learn that you can get wild on a Saturday night. Come see the pastor on Sunday morning.
You can turn around with the influence you have and figure out how to co-create space where you're doing exactly what you're doing right now.
Political gaslighting. I hate it.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Barnes here, hosting another Softening the Ground conversation with P68. I'm joined by my guy that has an exciting life. You want to introduce yourself, exciting life guy?
Van Lathan, host of the Higher Learning Podcast, overall media dude. Happy to be here to discuss some very important things.
Marcus, man, we appreciate you being here, sitting down with this conversation with hopes of informing our North Carolina brothers and sisters about what's going on and what's to come.
Man, Matt Vaughn, it's good to be here. Welcome to North Carolina. Exciting time to be in this state right now, and I'm happy to give leadership to an organization called the North Carolina Black Alliance. So I really have a question for y'all first. I know y'all want to hear a lot about North Carolina, but my first real hot take that I want to get from y'all, this season is real hot. Everybody wants to know what folks are thinking, what they're doing. Do you feel like this is the only time, this political season is the only time they really want to hear from us? And if so, who are the usual voices that you all hear in political conversations when it comes down to our issues?
I mean, I think, to be honest, a lot of people are very surface level when it comes to this. They love to complain, but not actually understand what's going on. I think we live in a generation of, if you can word what is going on well, we'll take that and run with it. And I've even been guilty of it sometimes. What I've learned, luckily, with working with P68 now is we have a group chat, and it's, although I don't have the day-to-day to live it and breathe it like most, and people who are really into it, I'm constantly updated. So I do understand that obviously around election time is when all the attention is garnished and everyone's really trying to pay attention, but it's a year-round effort, and I realize that, and I think that's how we really to start understanding what's going on and what's to come.
Thanks.
Who is the they? When you said that they only want to hear from us every once again, who is the they?
That's a good question. I mean, the they could be transferable, right? There is a power establishment of party politics that only cares about coming into our communities during certain times of the year. They could also be individuals that are just seeking candidacy. A lot of times people step into churches, they step on HBCU campuses for homecoming only during the presidential election cycle. Do you experience that?
Yeah, so the reason why I asked who the they is because I don't care about them, whoever they are. It's important to recontextualize experiences and conversations around Black political engagement, in my opinion, around Black people.
There you go.
Right? So in terms of when they're listening to us, I've asked this question before, but I stopped asking it because it centers whoever the they is, right? And I'm not saying that you were doing that.
No.
I'm just saying that it centers them. What we should have conversations about is how do we engage each other in these conversations whenever there's an election going on or not? Who cares?
Right.
And we continue to have those conversations because what we need to do more than anything is get a lot of people who are talking politics, distill their conversations down to what the values are behind those conversations.
Right.
And you do that through conversation and sharing ideas. So when that politician comes in, when they swoop in like aliens every 4 years.
Helicopter in.
Exactly. So at least when they come in, you know what you think.
That's it.
And they don't get to tell you what you think.
Yeah.
So I think that it's more important to forget about when they want to hear from us and think about when we want to hear from us.
That's solid. That's solid, man. The organization that I'm with, the North Carolina Black Alliance, we believe exactly that point. So many times folks are focused on the they, not focused on the us.
Right.
When we talk about building political power in Black communities, that's a different set of issues, a different set of challenges, a whole nother different conversation that has to happen. And we have to be intentional. If we let the parties dictate for us what we won't gain power.
Right.
But until we get in a space where we're comfortable, where we can talk, just like what y'all are doing right now, that's how we really build power. And particularly in the South, where they have tried to snuff out in all the different ways imaginable, from legislation to culture on a local level. They're trying to take us out. So what we really want to do is break it down to a level in which the people can understand how to create power. Not that they don't understand, because they live these issues. You don't have to tell a person that is dealing with systemic racism or dealing with governmental abuse that what they're dealing with, they know. But what they want is a pathway to power. And that's what we try to provide.
So you mentioned the South, and I'm from Louisiana, the actual South. I love North Carolina. I love North Carolina. I love North Carolina.
Even Bojangles?
I had some Bojangles. Shout out to Bojangles. North Carolina hating on their own stuff. Bojangles.
You liked it?
Oh, no.
I liked it.
He's asked a lot of people, and it's been mixed reviews.
But I ate it, and I was like, yeah, you know what I mean?
You tried the spicy?
I don't eat it spicy.
Okay.
I eat the regular. But when you talk about Black people and the work that you do, dealing with Black people, Black voters in the South, I'll say this: being a Southerner, what I feel sometimes is that the plight of the Black Southern American is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Say often overlooked. It's our ancestral home in this country, but our power bases here and our political edification here sometimes is taken for granted or overlooked because these states are states that are going to be heavily red, so no one cares about what we need.
Right.
How does the conversations that you have with Black Southerners, how do you address the fact that this might be one of the most overlooked demographics in political America?
First of all, you have to think about the fact that over 2/3 of the Black population still lives in the South.
Absolutely.
And when you think about that, the generations of individuals that have lived in the same state is incredible. But it also creates a condition, right? Because just like the same Black people are in those communities, the same white people are in those communities. The same sheriff has been there. Their grandfather was a sheriff. Their great-grandfather was a sheriff. Their great-grandfather was a judge. And so that creates a way of life where plantation politics takes root in a real way, right? You don't necessarily see that in the North because, as Malcolm X said, in the North, you can get as loud as you want to as long as you don't get too big. In the South, you can get as big as you want to as long as you don't get too loud. And so I think that notion is a political analysis, right? You don't just apply that to business. You can apply that to every frame of life.
Absolutely.
And so I think in the South, when you think about some of the Southern movements, Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Ella Baker, a lot of folks from the outside looking in see that as like sing-songy, churchy. But what they don't know is what the Jamaicans say, they're liveling up themselves. When you're going against racist police and dogs and fire hoses, you got to be in a setting where you can get hyped for a few minutes and then go out there and face that.
Yeah. Right.
That's technology. But when you're looking at it from the outside in, you just think, oh, okay, man, they just, kind of happy-go-lucky. We always been singing. But yes, we've always been singing to get ourselves free as an expression. And when you look at it from a Southern perspective, it makes more sense and more nuanced. And then at the same time, you have to realize the threat is even more greater. So white supremacy is an economic advantage for some people. And when you shake up the politics in some of these areas where folks have held down races for hundreds of years, you begin to mess up what they call the natural order of things. And so that's why we really got to dig deep and understand what's going on. Because if we don't understand the game that's being played, we're going to get played.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What struggles do you have as someone who organizes with getting year-round information to people? Obviously this is something that we've touched on that is a lifestyle. Yeah. And people only allow, because it is, when you do actually step in it, it takes a lot of time and energy in your heart because you really see, excuse my language, how fucked up stuff is.
Right.
So people want to kind of block this off, or okay, it's election time, let's really lock in. But how do you turn those people into people and I guess deliver your message to where they want to hear it year round and really start being informed?
Man, the first thing we do, we don't start with the ballot. We start with the power. How many people in here want power?
Everybody.
Right. Everybody may not want to vote or believe in voting, but everybody knows that they don't have power.
Right.
And they know somebody that's holding that power back from them in various ways. We don't like to end in just voting alone, because voting is a tool, right? A lot of people say we're so focused on voting. Why aren't we focused on building economic power? You can't build economic power if the laws are coding it where small businesses can't grow the way they used to grow during Black Wall Street.
Yep.
You can't really grow from a standpoint of knowledge if the school to prison pipeline is more dynamic now in rural communities and southern communities than ever before. And I think even though some of us, we have the opportunity to live in Raleigh. I think when you think about North Carolina, you think about Tobacco Road, you think about the huge amount of like Charlotte, for instance, the Carolina Panthers. A lot of North Carolina looks like the Deep South. When you think about some of these communities that have not had power for years, you can't tell them that one election is going to change their outcome. But what you do tell them is that when you understand the dynamics of power, you can shift it. But when you make power invisible, racism exists. And in a very real way, we have to start right there. We have to start not the day before the election with a cookout or a DJ, not knocking that, because you need all types of celebration in this work. But also at the same time, you have to start a year before when taxes are due. So you can let folks understand that even though you might not care about politics, you're going to have to pay taxes to this political governmental system. And those taxes are supposed to pay for services in your community. So you're wondering why you don't have street lights. You're wondering why the bus stop looks raggedy. You're wondering why your schools and your zip code don't look the same, or you got to deal with different. It's because of the structure of racism. And if you want to change that, then you work 365. And the election, what the election really is, it's a litmus to determine how much power you have and how much further you need to go. When you break it down like that, people understand how to use that tool better. And they're not just chopping at the tree thinking that they're going to make it fall with one swing. They know it takes us building that strength and that muscle memory to do it every single year.
What is the difference, in your opinion, in addressing organizing behind a political campaign and just the power building that you're talking about that you do in communities? One is directly geared towards affecting a political outcome. The other is informing people on standards, on expectations, and on ways that they can affect those things on a grassroots way. What is the difference? How do you split the baby there?
That's very important. We're at a time right now where the Democratic Party has just transitioned their presumptive nominee with a brand new face. Some people are going to attribute that to a donor class pushing the Democratic establishment. But what we oftentimes don't forget is even people in this space have realized what they were seeing on TV is not the game that's really being played. If folks look too old to run for office and deal with that stress, there's a reality there. If folks feel like the issues of criminal justice reform and voting rights aren't being affected in the 4 years that you had, they have a right to be able to say, what's going on. There were so many people that were trying to deny our ability to push power by saying that there's not another way. And now here we are 2 weeks later, not telling people who to vote for, but there's a different option that is calling into question what people thought was normal. And even the smartest political heads thought that it wasn't possible for the Democrats to change the top nominee. But now here we are almost 2 weeks later, nobody's even talking about when Biden was running. Everybody's talking about Kamala, good or bad, you know what I mean? So I think from that standpoint, we have to realize that politics is an evolving game. And the way we don't evolve it is by not engaging. And you can't be upset because you lost quarter one and quarter two, because during halftime, right, in the midterm election cycles, when there are local races that are more exciting, that touch people's lives, you'll see a sheriff, you'll see a district attorney, a prosecutor, way more than you'll see a president. That's really where the power lies. And as you, year after year, as you get them to continue to engage, that's really where the shift happens. And I mean, I really believe it. We see it in a real way just in this past 2 weeks. Nobody would have predicted how much enthusiasm, how much intentionality, and really how much accountability is being placed on this new candidate because folks were still stuck on the old way,
But I also just love and want to reiterate the local and state level,
Absolutely.
where you can see that immediate turnaround. And because I think a lot of people of color think my voice doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But when you break it down to smaller, understandable, immediate turnarounds with the local and state level, that's where I think you that felt good. Like I had a part of, those potholes being fixed or those lights being fixed. Like my vote counted. And again, as you continue to engage and consume more information, you grow your interest in the space. But it's so important for the local and state.
That's another reason why political IQ is important as well.
Okay.
Because it changes the set of expectations that you have, right? If you're expecting that you're going to vote and then magically all the circumstances around you are going to change, then you're probably going to find yourself displeased with a lot of the outcomes from your vote. But if you know you can get a bad DA out, if you know you can get a sheriff that you can deal with out, if you know you can change a budget, if you know you can do those things and affect those things in a way and see it affect your community, then that empowers you to do more and
Absolutely.
get deeper into what your political power is.
Case in point, police reform is one of the bigger issues that we're not talking about
Right.
nationally, right? But everybody knows we got to fix the system of policing in this country. We'll hear so much about the president, but we'll forget the city council is on the ballot right now. The city council elects or selects the police chief. And so if you're not really paying attention to what's happening, you're not keeping your eye on the ball, you don't realize that this play right here can shift this dynamic down here. And so you're absolutely right. It's been determined that in voting precincts across the country, 4 votes per precinct can shift the difference in an election. Just think about that, man. And these elections are not won by big margins.
Not at all.
Maybe 2,000 people vote for a sheriff in a town, or maybe 30,000, 40,000, like in the South. In these bigger areas, the margin's a little bit greater, but guess what? The diversity is there. And if we could really talk about what's happening locally with some influence, then we can make the difference. Which kind of leads me to this question. You all are doing exactly what we need folks to do. We need to have celebrity talking about what's happening, breaking it down for us. Do you all think it's important that other folks follow what you all are doing and engage across whatever demographic or of influence they have? And how do we get folks to do more of that? How do we get celebrity to really influence the political space as much as they do all the other facets of entertainment and sports?
Right. Political is a tricky bag for people with platforms or names or in spaces. You know what I mean? So to me, I think it's to each his own first and foremost, but you really have to know what you're talking about when you're talking. You know what I mean? And I think that's what scares a lot of people. But definitely, through, the organization we work with, the ability to find these bigger names and faces that are confident to, first of all, do the work, but then also understanding that our platforms are the biggest platforms in the world. You know what I mean? About a celebrity, whether it be athlete, entertainment, whatever, maybe music. I'll give you an example of just talking to our kids. Like we'll say this, and that, but let Steph Curry say it. And it changes everything. You know what I mean? So it's almost kind of have like sometimes when you get these people that are special and really engage in this process and everyone knows it's coming from an authentic place, their voice carries a lot of weight. So I think it's really a case by case situation. But to me, I've always said, if this is something that interests you, our reach is unmatched.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of factors here. It depends on what you care about and what you ask for. So where I'm from, it's funny what you just said about voter turnout. In Baton Rouge, there was a large portion of the city proper that broke off to start their own city of St. George. Took $80 to $100 million worth of tax revenue. It was the wealthiest part of the city away from Baton Rouge, right? 10,000 people voted for the initiative in the city of 500,000 people.
Right. So
we didn't lose St. George, we gave it away. So when I see things like that, I think to myself, I'm not okay with that happening in a place where I know the wants and needs of the people there.
Right.
So I have to be engaged, right? So what I want is justice and equality for people who look like me everywhere, all right? For people everywhere, but my people first. Okay. And the second thing is what you ask for, okay? I see a lot of celebrities, I'll be honest with you, that when they get in trouble, when they don't get the right liquor contract, or when they don't get into the right rooms, or when they don't get the right award, They say, I am a black man, I am a black person. Look at the way they are discriminating against me. Look at the way they are treating me. Boycott everyone. Like, boycott it all. These people aren't treating us fair. And because I am black, just like you, then you need to stand in solidarity with me so they treat me great so I can get the next contract and do that. Then when we turn around and make asks of them,
talk about it.
They're too rich. And so to me, I've done it all. I use Tidal right now because Jay-Z said Apple was bad. He said Tidal was owned by a black man, and I'm like, I'm rocking with you, Hov. And I still listen to it. Every time I try to share music with somebody, like listen to this song, they say, I don't have Tidal. But I can't stop. Hov got me. I love Jay. Then he sold the company to white people. All right, so it's not wrong making money. But what I'm saying, if you ask us for cultural solidarity or political solidarity, then I would expect that you would use your platform to affirm us in that same way. And I see a disconnect in that relationship like all the time. So depends on what you want and what you're asking for. I don't think you have to do it. Some people, I'm glad to see them not involved in it.
Right, absolutely.
But if you have a want for your community or if you have an ask for your community, you should be prepared to go to bat for your community.
And I'm gonna just say this too. Athletes have probably the most community accountability than any other level of celebrity. When you think about the pride that they have in their local high school, the fact that some coach, mentored and guided them, and the fact that that same coach was probably making minimum wage. That obligation, it weighs on you heavy. I know it does, but in a real way, it's a microcosm of why celebrity influence is the greatest. Because you had thousands of people follow you from a little boy all the way up until a grown man, grown woman. And in this instance, if you can just shift just for a little bit of your time and expand that space, you can free up a lot more people than just reaching out of your pocket and giving something in a moment. And I think that's the analysis that y'all have that we got to make sure we spread out.
I'll tell you why I appreciate Matt. Seriously, like not guys like Matt, but Matt himself. There's something that we don't understand, I think, about athletes in particular, is there are very few people in the world who are who are incredibly successful at something that they started doing when they were 9 years old, right? Something that they've been doing their whole life. I talked to Colin Kaepernick one time and I was like, Cap, why do you want to get back in the league so much? And he was like, well, people look at football as a career for me. He's like, it's not a career, it's my life's work. Like I've been doing this, I put my first pair of pads on when I'm like in the second or third grade. It's not easy for me to just give this up because I stepped out on faith for my people. I shouldn't have to, so I don't want to. The thing about athletes is they're so dedicated to what they've been doing for so long. It really takes up a lot of time. I see dudes in the gym, they got cones, they dribbling around the cones, they stopping, they shooting. I'm like, I want to kick them cones out the way. But they're doing this for a long time. And then you know what happens? One day things slow down a little bit. One day they don't have to work as much. One day that career ends and then they take a step back and they look at their world. And all of a sudden they're forced to make an assessment. When there's more time to look at it, more time to analyze it. And I watch in real time, some of them make mistakes, say the wrong thing. And some of them come to these unbelievably beautiful conclusions about how they want to show up. I watched that happen in real time with you. When one day I go to your house and there's a dude talking to us about politics, I'm calling people, I'm like, what's Matt on, man? Like, Matt, like you're serious. That example right there is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because it lets you know that there is no time in your life where it's too late to like take an interest in what your fellow citizens are going through and what's happening to them and to get involved. And when people that don't have to do it, it just inspires other people.
I mean, the same thing can be said about media, right?
Yeah.
Like you have the opportunity to go to a larger platform, to be in a space where you have to continue to deal with that beast, or you can turn around with the influence you have and figure out how to co-create space where you're doing exactly what you're doing right now. So I'm in the same, bonus you give the Matt on that board, you get it on your board too. And we have to, especially in this climate, make sure folks see that there's not that much difference between a celebrity media influencer, a media journalist, or athlete, still paycheck to paycheck in some cases, still 1 year removed from conditions being vastly different. But so many times we let other people tell our narrative politically, and we think that there's so much distance between a business owner in our community or an athlete in our community. And the more we have these conversations, the more we build this understanding, we're building power at the same time.
Well, I appreciate that, Van, and I think why it means a lot to me is obviously, we care about our people and want to see what's best, but also know how important my voice is and how big my platform and how far it reaches. And bigger than that, I'm a father. You know what I mean? So, and in this space, you have to realize everything we're pushing for today, we may not reap the benefits from, and that's okay. And as a father, I'm good with that because I got a long line of a lot of goddamn kids. Another one coming soon that will hopefully understand what we did and the work we did to get things to where they are now that they get to enjoy, but then to also carry on. You know what I mean? So again, this was a conversation that wasn't at my dinner table. I never touched or talked about politics until Barack was on the ballot because it just never interested me. It didn't care about it. I didn't know if it affected me or not, but it just wasn't for me. And once that happened and you got to see it to believe it. Whatever you see, you believe in, and to be able to see it. And then again, I'm not going to lie, I'm not in this every single day. And I respect anyone who is, because it's not, again, it's heartfelt and it's a lot of work, but just to be able to educate myself and be able to help spread my influence and spread the message, bring someone like you in on the situation with P68, and again, just amplify our message and get it through because we all have different sets of fans and fan bases and people who like and don't like us. But, to be able to reach as many as possible, to me, I always feel like, a fist is better than a finger. You know what I mean? So if we're able to come together with the like messages and continue to push what needs to be heard, it's going to be beneficial.
I can't let you leave without talking about Mark Robinson, the favorite son of North Carolina. Y'all proud of him?
Hey, first of all, I work for an organization. I can't tell you who to vote for.
Right.
But what I can tell you is that all skin folk ain't kin folk.
Man.
And I think so many times the two-party system has us believing that the representation alone will get us through. Right. And I think because of social media, because of news being 24/7, because of us being more engaged, we're realizing now that just because we see a guy that looks like us, don't mean that he's for us.
But he don't even want to look like us is the problem. I think that's the first and foremost problem.
Can I ask you something about that real quick? You can't, and this is another thing, I think this is important. You can't tell people who to vote for, right?
Right.
You can't. You work for an organization, you can't tell people who to vote for. I don't tell people to vote for either. But I do think that that's why it's important that people have a political IQ, because I can ask you what you want and what kind of society you want, and then just say, does this represent that?
That's right.
And I think that's fair.
That's right.
How do you do that without telling people this is not the guy to vote for? How do you make sure that you let them make their own decision?
There are some issues, regardless of how big or how small, that impact every community. And our organization works in a lot of rural and urban communities. In North Carolina Black Alliance, we talk about environmental racism. As a matter of fact, North Carolina is home to the environmental justice movement. 40 years ago in Warren County, they actually protested against a landfill site and they won. And so when we talk about environmental justice or criminal justice reform or economic justice or education, all of those issues point back to the political process. And in a very real way, they point back to the candidates. It doesn't take but a Google search to see one candidate waging a war on public schools, telling Black women that they belong barefoot and pregnant, telling individuals that they should give repayment back to white people for slavery. It doesn't take long to Google search that. And it doesn't take long to see other candidates that aren't talking that hate, that have a platform that matches those issues that I just spoke to. And I think the ability for us as a nonpartisan organization to let folks know that this is what a person said and make sure they stand on that is very important, especially in this moment of misinformation and disinformation.
Right. Take this real information.
Yeah, just tell me, I'm gonna let you know what they said.
You do what you must.
You be the judge.
Marcus, how can people get more information about the North Carolina Black Alliance? You guys are doing such great work.
You can follow us on all the platforms, NC Black Alliance. We also launched a website, safevoternc.org. There is a lot of intimidation in the South, and there are folks that don't want to see us vote. And when we created this website, safevoternc.org, we wanted to create one place where folks knew where the safe spots were to vote. They'll tell black people to vote on one day and white people to vote on another day, and that's not right. And so to make sure that they have one place to get information, they can go there. And if you want to figure out how to engage, if you want to print out some of your materials and hand out at different spaces, school is starting this week. So a lot of people are asking us for materials for elementary, high school, and college. You can go to Safe Voter NC, get that information, and you can plug in with the NC Black Alliance on any social site, and we'll connect with you in North Carolina or beyond. We even know folks in other states. So come to us, ask us. If you're watching this from any other place, we can connect you to another organization that's doing work just like us across the South.
Quickly, before we get out of here, can you walk us through the elections and what's happening this year, particularly in North Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina for the first time in a while is having to deal with each and every single House and Senate member up for grabs. On top of that, we have a number of races called the Council of State. It's not just the governor at the top of the ticket in North Carolina, but there are areas like the Department of Public Instruction. We have to elect the state superintendent. We have to elect a state auditor. The auditor determines a lot more than what you realize, a state treasurer. And then we have these judicial races. And I'm telling you, from state Supreme Court, who handles all of these racist legislation that's being passed through the General Assembly, they're able to stop that. They are trying to whitewash the General Assembly. They're trying to make it to where there's no representation for us at all. And so we have to make sure that we're following that, and we have to go all the way down the ballot. We talked a lot about schools. School board races are on the ballot. District attorneys are on the ballot. And that's very important when you talk about getting into situations at a local level. You have to have those DAs. And municipal races, too, are very important that we follow who's the mayor, who's the city council. That's just a few, but there are over 24 different offices on the ballot. Even somebody with a PhD in politics, it'll take them a long time to research each and every single race, but it's important that we do that.
Where have you guys felt like you've been most effective engaging with the population? Is it Facebook, Instagram? Like, where you guys feel like you're getting the most engagement?
I'll tell you what, we have a huge following on social media, but folks want it live and direct in front of their face right now.
Okay.
They want to see and hear and feel what's going on. And they want people to know, especially people that are giving them information, what I'm dealing with in my backyard. And so we're doing like a statewide 12-city health fair coming up. And a lot of organizations are saying they're coming out. We just had North Carolina has 11 HBCUs. All of them were together with us in Charlotte at John C. Smith just this week talking about how they can engage. And so those boxes of people are the folks that we're working with now. And there are people that are still cynical or skeptical about the process that we got to make sure we don't miss them. There's a lot of Black veterans in North Carolina that really need to know who's for them and who's against them and where to really work. And a lot of those people are not on social media. So we have a lot of online engagement, but then we're not above just printing stuff out, showing up where you want us to come going to your outside event, showing up at a barbecue, passing out information, because we got to do both ends. It's never going to be an either or, especially with a demographic of people that are getting older, but are still a massive voting block, and with a demographic of people that are getting younger, that are being bombarded with misinformation, disinformation. We got to be in person, out of person, in season, out of season. We got to hit them at all different stops.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. Marcus, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you do.
Appreciate you.
Very important conversations. And this is just the beginning. Obviously, we're in a political season. We're in an election year, an election season, but the work will carry on way, way past that. We're going to continue to do that work at P68 with conversations like this and to support gentlemen like you. So thank you for sitting down with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all for being close to the people.
Yeah.